Elias had always lived a quiet life at the edge of the northern forest. People in the nearby town often talked about him because of his size. He was taller than almost every man around, with shoulders broad enough to make doorframes look narrow. But anyone who spoke to him, even for a moment, would learn that he was gentle, patient, and kind. He never looked for attention. He preferred the calm of trees, the whistling of wind, and the sound of his axe striking wood. For Elias, the forest was a friend that never argued, never hurried him, and never complained. His days were simple. He woke up before sunrise, warmed his hands by the fire, ate a small breakfast, and then walked out to the woods with his axe. He worked slowly, never harming more trees than needed. He believed that the forest gave life, and he respected every branch, every leaf, and every old trunk that stood tall longer than he had been alive. When he finished his work in the evening, he carried the chopped wood back to his cabin, stored it neatly, cooked a warm meal, and sat outside to watch the sky turn from blue to orange to dark purple. That evening, the weather felt unusually still. The air carried a soft chill, and the silence of the forest felt heavier than usual. Elias noticed it because he was a man who paid attention to small changes. He listened to the wind, to the calls of birds, to the way the leaves moved. But today, none of those things sounded normal. The trees were still, the birds were quiet, and even the river nearby seemed to flow more softly. As Elias sat on the wooden steps outside his cabin, sipping warm tea, he suddenly heard something very faint, almost too faint to notice. It sounded like small footsteps, soft and quick, as if someone tiny was running across dry leaves. He set his cup aside and waited. The sound stopped. Then a whisper traveled through the quiet air. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't an animal. It was a voice, actually two little voices. Elias stood up slowly, not wanting to frighten whoever it was. He stepped forward, his heavy boots pressing into the ground softly for a man his size. He reached the edge of the clearing near his cabin and looked around, but nothing moved. Just when he thought he imagined the sound, he heard it again, this time clearer. It was a small voice crying. Elias lowered himself to one knee and scanned the bushes carefully. The forest plants were short near the cabin, so he could see the ground easily. Then he noticed movement behind a fallen log, something small and trembling. He took a few steps closer, and with gentle eyes, he asked, "Is someone there?" For a moment, silence answered him. Then, slowly, two tiny heads rose from behind the log. They belonged to children, two little twins, a boy and a girl. They were smaller than any children Elias had ever seen. Their clothes were handmade from natural fibers, decorated with tiny patterns drawn in earthy colors. Their hair was dark, long, and braided with small wooden beads. Their faces were tired, pale from cold, and their hands shook as they clung to each other. Elias froze for a second. He had heard stories about small native tribes who lived deep inside the forest, people who avoided outsiders. He never believed he would see them, especially two children all alone. The twins looked frightened but hopeful, as if they had walked a long distance just for this moment. The girl stepped forward first. She was shaking, but she lifted her chin bravely. Her voice was tiny, almost like a soft bird call. "Please, help us," she whispered. Her brother followed her, his eyes wide with worry. "Please, we need help," he repeated, trying to be strong even though he was clearly scared. Elias felt his heart soften. He lowered his massive hands, palms open, to show he meant no harm. "You're safe here," he said calmly. "Tell me what happened." But the twins didn't explain. Instead, they suddenly fell to their knees in front of him. Their small hands touched the ground, and their heads bowed as if they were begging him with their whole hearts. The sight shook Elias. He had never seen children so desperate, so humble, and so brave at the same time. The girl's voice cracked. "Our people need help," the boy added. "We came far, very far." Elias reached out slowly, worried that even his gentle touch might scare them because of his size. "It's all right," he said softly. You don't have to kneel. Stand up. You're safe. But the twins stayed in place, trembling from cold and fear. Elias could see that their journey had not been easy. Their clothes were dusty, their feet were scratched, and their tiny legs looked weak from walking so much. He realized that whatever pushed them to come here must have been very serious. Without thinking twice, Elias removed his warm outer jacket and gently wrapped it around both of them. The jacket was so large that it covered them completely like a blanket. The twins looked up at him with grateful eyes. They didn't speak, but their expressions said more than words. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath. Even the wind waited. Elias stood up slowly and said, Come inside. You need warmth and food first. At first, the twins hesitated. They looked at each other, as if asking silently whether they could trust this giant man of the woods. Then the girl nodded, and the boy followed. Together, they took small steps toward him. Inside the cabin, Elias lit a fire and placed the twins near it. They warmed their hands eagerly, stretching their fingers towards the light. Elias cooked them a simple meal, warm soup, soft bread, and fresh water. When he placed the bowls in front of them, the children hesitated again, looking unsure if it was allowed. You can eat, he said gently. You need your strength. The girl picked up her spoon first. After the first taste, her eyes softened, and she continued eating slowly, carefully. The boy followed, eating with quiet gratitude. Elias sat across from them, letting them finish in peace. When they were done, they looked at him with more confidence. They still seemed scared, but now they trusted him enough to stay close to the fire, instead of hiding behind furniture. Elias waited patiently. He knew they needed time before speaking. After a few minutes, the girl finally whispered, We came because our home is in danger. Her brother nodded, tightening his small fists. Our people are scared. Elias listened carefully, not interrupting. The girl tried to explain more, but her voice broke. She looked down, unable to continue. Seeing her struggle, the boy took over. We need help. Strong help, our grandfather said. The only one who can help us is the giant man who lives near the tall trees. He pointed to Elias with both hands. That is you. Elias blinked with surprise. He never thought anyone in the deep forest even knew about him, let alone sent children this far to find him. How did you find my cabin? He asked softly. The girl answered, The forest guided us. Then she added quickly, And we followed the river. Grandfather told us to look for the smoke from your chimney. Elias felt a strange mixture of honor and sadness. These children had walked through dangerous forest areas, trusting the hope of finding one man they had never met, and now they were here, tired, cold, and desperate. He leaned forward so they could see the kindness in his eyes. You were very brave to come here, and I promise you, I will listen. I will try to help. The twins exchanged a relieved glance. They were still scared, still exhausted, but now they had found the person they were searching for. Outside, the night grew darker. The forest remained silent, as if waiting for what would happen next. Inside the warm cabin, the giant lumberjack and the tiny native twins sat together, facing a mystery that had brought their worlds together in the most unexpected way. And this moment, the moment when the twins knelt before Elias, begging with their small voices for help, would soon become the beginning of a story no one in the forest would forget. Elias kept the fire burning warmly inside the cabin as the tiny twins rested. Their eyes looked brighter now, but the worry on their little faces had not disappeared. He could tell that they were carrying a heavy burden, something far too big for children their age. Elias decided not to rush them. He sat quietly, giving them time to breathe, eat, and warm up. After a while, the girl placed her small hand on her brother's arm. It was a silent signal between them, the kind only twins could understand. The boy took a deep breath and looked up at Elias with determined eyes. We want to tell you everything, he said softly. Elias nodded. I'm ready to listen. The twins shifted closer to each other, almost touching shoulders. They always moved like one. Where one breathed, the other followed. It showed how deeply they cared for each other. Even though they were tiny compared to Elias, their courage was far greater than their size. The girl began speaking first. She seemed shy but steady. Our people live far inside the forest, so far that most outsiders don't know we exist. The boy added, "We are called the Littlefoot clan. Our home is hidden between tall trees, near a small mountain, where the sun touches the river in the morning." Elias listened closely. He had heard legends about this clan in stories passed down by travelers. According to those tales, the Littlefoot clan lived in harmony with nature, never taking more than they needed, and always giving thanks for what they used. Some people said they were small in size but big in spirit, and that their kindness to the forest kept the land healthy for generations. Elias never thought those stories were real until now. He leaned forward just enough to show he cared, without overwhelming them with his size. "Tell me more about your home," he encouraged gently. The girl smiled faintly as she spoke. "Our homes are built from branches and leaves, woven together with strong vines. We paint our walls with natural colors from plants. We live close to the ground, so we can feel the earth," her brother continued. "And every evening, we light small lamps made from tree sap. The forest glows softly. It feels like stars came down to stay with us." Elias imagined the peaceful picture. A warm, glowing village, hidden deep in the woods, a place untouched by greed or noise, where people lived simply and loved the world around them. He wondered what danger could threaten such gentle people. The twins exchanged another look. The girl's expression grew sad. "But something terrible happened," she said. The boy nodded slowly. "A huge tree fell. A tree bigger than any we have ever seen. It fell near our water source after the last big storm. It blocked the stream completely." Elias frowned slightly. The northern forest storms were powerful. Trees older than a century could fall without warning. "Your water stopped flowing?" he asked. "Yes," the boy replied. "And our water path is the only clean water we have. When it stopped, our plants dried. Our animals had no place to drink. In one," the girl added softly, "our people tried to move the tree. Everyone pulled together, from the oldest to the youngest. But the trunk was too thick. It was too heavy. Even when we cut branches, it didn't move. We are small people. We don't have strength like yours." Elias understood now why they had come. A fallen tree that size could destroy an entire tribe's way of living. It was not just about water. It was about survival. But the story wasn't finished. "There is more," the girl whispered. The boy lowered his eyes. "Because the tree fell, the homes of some forest animals were destroyed too. They started walking closer to our village. They didn't hurt us, but they came too near, and we had to hide often." "Nod." Elias nodded gently. He knew animals didn't attack unless threatened, but even peaceful creatures could scare small children if they came too close. Their presence alone could make a tiny village unsafe. The twins continued, switching between each other naturally, as if sharing one heart. "Our grandfather is the leader," the girl said proudly. "He is wise and calm. He teaches us to listen to the wind and to respect the land." The boy finished the thought. "He told us the forest always gives a path. So he sent us to find help. But not just anyone." The girl looked straight at Elias, her eyes shining in the firelight. "He told us to find the giant man who respects the forest." Elias raised his eyebrows slightly. "Me?" The boy nodded. "Yes. He said there is a man who cuts trees but never harms the forest. A man who takes only what he needs and always leaves the land better." The girl added, "Grandfather said you are the only one strong enough to move the fallen tree." Elias sat back, surprised and touched. He had never met anyone from their clan. Yet they knew him. They trusted him. And they believed he could save them. "How far did you walk to reach my cabin?" Elias asked gently. The girl lifted her small hands. "We walked for one full sunrise and one sunset. We slept in a hollow log during the night. Then, we walked again." The boy added, We followed the river until we saw the smoke from your chimney. Grandfather said that was the sign. Elias felt a heaviness in his chest. These children had walked for miles, through cold, through shadows, through unknown dangers, all because they believed he could help them. It was not just bravery, it was faith. He spoke softly. You two are very strong. The girl shook her head. We are just doing what our people need. Her brother added. We cannot move the tree. But you can. Elias remained quiet for a long moment. He wasn't thinking about whether he should help. That decision was already made in his heart. He was thinking about how deeply these children trusted him, how they crossed the forest on tiny feet just to reach him. But the twins weren't done with their story yet. We tried everything, the girl continued. We used ropes. We tried cutting small pieces. We asked the forest for guidance. She looked down sadly, but the water did not return. The boy added. Grandfather became worried. The elders met. They said we need someone bigger. Someone who understands wood and nature. Someone who knows how to move trees. The girl finished. Someone like you. Elias felt humbled. He had spent his whole life working quietly, never expecting to matter to anyone beyond selling chopped wood. Yet here were two small children who believed he was the only hope for their entire tribe. He stood up slowly, not in anger or fear, but with purpose. His shadow stretched across the cabin floor, long and calm. The twins watched him, waiting for his response. Elias walked to the window and looked out at the dark forest. The moonlight touched the treetops, making them glow faintly. He had always loved this forest, and now he realized that the people who lived deep inside it needed him. He turned back to the twins. I will help you, he said firmly. The girl's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but relief. The boy whispered, Thank you, thank you. Elias knelt beside them so they wouldn't have to look up so far. But first, he said softly, you two need rest. You walked far, and tomorrow will be a long day. You'll sleep here tonight where it's warm. The twins nodded gratefully. Elias made them a comfortable bed near the fire, using soft blankets and extra cushions. They curled up together, their small forms barely making a shape under the blanket, their faces relaxed for the first time since arriving. As they drifted off to sleep, Elias sat near the fire, watching the flames dance. The forest outside seemed to hum softly, as if it knew what was about to happen. He felt a strange sense of fate, as if meeting the twins was not an accident but something meant to be. He knew tomorrow would change everything for him, for the twins, and for the Littlefoot clan. But he was ready. And deep in their sleep, the tiny natives rested with peace, knowing their journey had not been in vain. The sun had just begun to rise when Elias opened his eyes. The soft golden light slipped through the window of his cabin and touched the wooden floor. The air outside was crisp, and the forest was waking up slowly, with gentle rustling sounds and faint bird calls. Elias stretched his arms and looked over at the small bed he made for the twins the night before. Naya and Kotu were still asleep, curled up closely next to each other under the blanket. Their breathing was soft and peaceful. Seeing them like this made Elias even more determined to help. These children had trusted him completely with the safety of their people. He would not let them down. After preparing a warm breakfast, bread, fruit, and a little honey, Elias stepped outside to check the weather. The sky was clear, and it seemed like the day was offering them safe travel. When he returned inside, the twins were awake, rubbing their eyes slowly. Good morning, he said gently. They smiled shyly. Good morning, they replied together in their soft voices. Elias placed the food in front of them. They ate politely, always thanking him with their eyes. Even in their small actions, Elias could see the manners and culture of their people. These children were raised with respect, humility, and gratitude. After breakfast, Elias packed a small bag with essentials: water, a little food, rope, and a few tools. His axe, the tool he trusted most, was already sharpened and ready. The twins watched him with excitement and relief. They knew today was the day he would follow them deep into the forest. Are you ready to go? Elias asked. Naya nodded eagerly. Kotu stood up with determination. "We will show you the way," he said confidently. Elias smiled. "Lead the path. I will follow." The three stepped outside, and the forest greeted them with open arms. Tall trees formed a green tunnel above, letting sunlight fall in soft patches over the ground. The twins walked ahead, their steps light and quick, but they always made sure Elias was close behind. Their feet moved silently, unlike Elias's heavy boots that made soft thuds against the earth. As they traveled deeper, the forest changed slowly. The trees grew taller, and the path became narrower. The twins seemed to know every turn, every sound, and every scent. They were born in this forest. It was part of them. At one point, Naya stopped suddenly and held up her hand. Elias paused. Kotu pointed at a set of small tracks on the ground. "Deer passed here early," he explained. "We must walk quietly so we don't disturb them." Elias admired their knowledge. Even though they were small, they understood the forest better than anyone he had ever met. Their connection with nature was deep and genuine. As they continued walking, Elias asked, "How did you learn so much about the forest?" Naya replied proudly, "Our grandfather teaches us every morning. He says the forest is our friend. When we listen to it, we stay safe." Kotu added with a little smile, "Sometimes the forest hides berries from us, but we find them anyway." Elias laughed softly. The twins' innocence warmed his heart. Despite the danger their people faced, they still carried joy within them. After a few hours of walking, they reached a narrow slope. The ground was uneven, and small rocks were scattered everywhere. Elias stepped carefully, watching the twins move like little deer between the stones. They had done this route many times before. "Hold my hand," Elias said, as he noticed Naya trying to cross a slippery patch. She hesitated, looking at his giant hand, then placed her tiny one inside it. Her fingers barely reached across his palm, but she trusted him instantly. With gentle steps, Elias helped her cross safely. Kotu followed behind, and soon they were on solid ground again. The journey continued, and Elias noticed how the forest seemed different from the places he usually worked. The air was richer, the light softer, and the ground felt untouched. It was a peaceful world hidden from strangers. Eventually, the trees parted slightly, revealing a small wooden arch made from branches. The twins stopped in front of it. "This is the entrance to our land," Kotu said quietly. Elias stepped closer, sensing the importance of this moment. The arch wasn't big, it was actually very small, almost symbolic. But to the twins, it held meaning. Naya whispered, "Only people with good hearts can pass." Elias felt humbled. When he stepped past the arch, the forest around him seemed to shift gently, as if welcoming him. From there, the path widened slightly. Small hand-carved signs hung from branches, bird shapes, leaf symbols, and tiny wooden bells that tinkled softly when touched by the wind. Elias could feel the presence of a community even before he saw it. And then, as they walked a little further, he finally saw the village. It was small, peaceful, and beautifully crafted. Houses made from intertwined branches formed gentle round shapes. Ladders made of vines led to shaded platforms where elders rested. Small children played quietly near a stream, though the water was thin and weak, showing that the source was blocked. When the villagers noticed Elias, they froze for a moment. He was taller than any person they had ever seen. But then they saw Naya and Kotu beside him. Their eyes softened. A woman stepped forward, kind eyes, gentle smile. She knelt to welcome the twins. They hugged her tightly. "Grandmother," Naya whispered. Then she looked up at Elias, studying his face. "You must be the man they spoke of," she said calmly. Elias bowed slightly. "My name is Elias. I came to help." She nodded gratefully and led him toward the center of the village, where the elders had gathered. Among them was a wise-looking man, with long silver hair decorated with beads. His presence carried warmth and authority. He was the twins' grandfather. "Welcome, giant friend," the elder said with a respectful tone. "We are honored that you have come." Elias bowed again. "Your grandchildren are brave. They told me what happened. Please show me the fallen tree. The elder motioned for Naya and Kotu to lead him. They walked through a narrow path behind the village until they reached the area where the tree had collapsed. Elias stopped in his tracks. The tree was enormous, larger than any he had cut in years. It lay across the main water stream like a thick wall. The water tried to push through tiny gaps, but could not find a proper path. The land around the trunk was muddy and unsettled, showing signs of struggle from the villagers' attempts. Naya pointed to it sadly. This is the tree. Kotu added, We tried everything. Elias walked around the massive trunk, examining the roots, the branches, and the angle at which it had fallen. He ran his hand along the bark, feeling the weight and balance. It was a challenging task, but not impossible. He took a deep breath and nodded. I can do it. The twins' faces lit up instantly. Relief washed over them like a warm wave. How will you move it? Kotu asked eagerly. Elias smiled. With care, with strength, and with help from nature. He took out his tools and began working. The villagers watched from a safe distance, amazed by the calm confidence he carried. He worked steadily, cutting only the parts necessary. His technique was balanced, not rushed, not forceful. He respected the fallen tree as if it were alive. Hours passed. Elias used his strength to shift heavy sections. He dug around the roots to create room. Slowly, the tree began to move. The twins watched with awe, their small hands gripping each other tightly. Finally, with one last strong push, the water broke free. A clear stream rushed forward, sparkling in the sunlight. It flowed joyfully through the village path, filling ponds, feeding the earth, and bringing life back to the land. The villagers cheered softly. Some clapped gently, others smiled with grateful tears. For them, this was a miracle. Naya and Kotu ran to Elias and hugged his legs tightly. You did it, they said in unison. Elias smiled warmly. We did it together. The village was alive again, and hope returned. The moment the water began flowing again, the entire Littlefoot village seemed to breathe in relief. The thin stream grew stronger with every passing second, stretching through the soil like a shining ribbon. Children laughed softly as they dipped their hands into the cool water. Elders nodded with deep gratitude, their faces showing both surprise and thankfulness. Elias watched quietly, wiping a light layer of sweat from his forehead. He wasn't someone who liked loud praise. For him, helping the twins and their people felt natural, almost like helping old friends. Still, seeing the village return to life warmed his heart in a way he hadn't felt in years. Naya and Kotu stood proudly beside him, their small faces filled with joy. They kept looking from Elias to the flowing water, and then back at Elias again, as if making sure the moment was real. You did it, Naya whispered, her voice full of awe. Elias smiled gently. We all did it. Your courage brought me here. Kotu nodded. Our grandfather will be very happy. They led Elias back toward the village center. As they walked, everyone came forward one by one. Some placed their hands over their hearts to show respect. Others bowed lightly. Their gestures were small but full of meaning. Elias felt honored, more honored than he had ever felt in his life. The twins' grandfather, the elder with silver hair and kind eyes, met Elias near the entrance of the village. His face glowed with gratefulness. You have restored not just our water, the elder said in a warm, steady voice. You have restored our hope. Elias lowered his head respectfully. Your grandchildren came to me with bravery no adult could match. They believed in me. I simply followed that belief. The elder nodded, his eyes soft. Still, your hands changed what seemed impossible. We wish to thank you properly. He motioned to a group of villagers who carried small wooden bowls filled with fruits, nuts, and handmade crafts. They placed the bowls in front of Elias like precious gifts. Elias felt touched but shook his head gently. I cannot take these, he said kindly. I didn't come for rewards. I came because it was right. The elder smiled knowingly, as if he expected this answer. Then tell us what your heart wishes for. he said. "Anything that comes from your heart will be our honor to give." Elias paused. He had never been asked this before. What could he possibly want? Money held no meaning for him. Food he already had. Tools he could make or buy easily. He looked around the village, watching how the people worked together in harmony. He saw tiny children gathering leaves with laughter, women weaving baskets with quiet focus, and elders sharing stories under the shade of trees. And then he realized what his heart wished for. "I want to learn from you," Elias finally said. "I want to understand your ways, how you live with such peace, how you care for the forest, how you stay united. That is what I want." The villagers exchanged surprised glances. They had expected him to ask for something simple. But Elias's request touched something deep in them. The elder pressed his hand over his heart. "If that is what you wish," he said warmly, "we will gladly teach you." And so, for the next few days, Elias stayed in the Littlefoot village as an honored guest. The villagers welcomed him as if he had always been part of their world. Naya and Kotu stayed close to him, excited to show him everything they loved about their home. On the first morning, the twins brought him to a quiet clearing where their grandfather sat on a small log. Sunlight filtered softly through the trees, creating a calm glow. "Sit with us," the elder invited. Elias gently lowered himself onto the ground, careful not to disturb the small plants nearby. "Our people believe," the elder began, "that nature speaks to those who listen. Every leaf tells a story. Every breeze carries wisdom." Elias listened respectfully. He heard the soft rustle of leaves, the distant whistle of a bird, and the gentle flow of the newly freed stream. It was peaceful, more peaceful than anything he had known in his cabin. The elder continued, "When we take wood, we thank the tree. When we drink water, we thank the stream. When we rest, we thank the earth. Gratitude keeps our hearts clean." Elias nodded slowly. He had always respected the forest, but now he understood a deeper meaning behind that respect. It wasn't just about protection, it was about relationship. The next day, Naya taught him how to weave small baskets from thin, flexible branches. Elias's fingers were large and clumsy compared to hers, and the first basket he made looked crooked and uneven. Naya giggled softly. "It looks like a sleepy turtle," she said kindly. Elias laughed. "Then I suppose I made a very tired turtle." Kotu showed him how to carve tiny shapes into wood using delicate tools. Elias had carved big pieces of wood all his life, but carving small, detailed designs was something new. His first attempt was a little rough, but Kotu admired the effort. "You are strong," the boy said proudly. "But you also learn gently." "That is good." Elias felt a warm glow in his chest. Teaching and learning with these small children brought him a happiness he had not expected. During the evenings, the villagers prepared simple meals and gathered around the fire. They sang soft songs about the moon, the trees, and the river. Elias listened with admiration. Even their songs felt connected to nature. On the third day, Elias decided he wanted to give something back to the village, something useful, something that would last. He walked to the edge of the stream and studied the land. With the recent floodwater gone, he saw a place where a small bridge could be useful. A bridge would help the children cross safely during rainy seasons and keep everyone connected. Using wood from fallen branches and vines from nearby trees, Elias carefully built a small but strong wooden bridge. The villagers watched from a distance, amazed by how his hands worked with skill and care. By evening, the bridge stood proudly across the stream. When the twins tested it, their footsteps sounded light and joyful. Kotu said, "This is the strongest bridge in our whole forest." Naya added, "It will help us for many years." The villagers thanked Elias again and again, this time with quiet emotions that didn't need words. On the final morning, Elias knew it was time to return home. Though he had grown attached to the Littlefoot people, he also knew they needed to return to their everyday life. He didn't want to become a burden or a distraction. The elder approached him with the entire village gathered behind him. He placed a small necklace around Elias's neck, a thin cord with a carved wooden charm shaped like a leaf. "This is the symbol of a guardian," the elder explained. "From today onward, you are an honorary guardian of the Littlefoot clan. Few outsiders have ever been trusted so deeply." Elias touched the charm gently. "I am honored," he said softly. Naya hugged his leg. "Come back," she said in her tiny voice. Kotu hugged him too. "We will miss you." Elias knelt down so he could be at their level. "I will visit," he promised. "And you are always welcome at my cabin." The villagers waved as he walked away. He looked back several times, each time seeing warm smiles, grateful eyes, and small hands raised in farewell. When Elias finally returned to his cabin, it felt different, not lonely, but peaceful. He looked around at the quiet space and smiled. He now carried something he didn't even know he had been missing: a deeper connection with the forest, and a bond with people who saw him not as a giant, but as a friend. Days later, just as he sat outside sipping warm tea, he heard two tiny footsteps approaching. Naya and Kotu stood there with bright smiles. "We came to visit," they said together. Elias laughed, his heart full. And so began a friendship that lasted for years. A friendship that started with two tiny native twins seeking help, and a giant lumberjack whose next move truly shocked everyone, including himself.